Hello. Good evening, everybody. It's 7 o'clock and welcome to this executive meeting of East Herts District Council. I'm delighted to see that there are a number of people who have joined us. You are all welcome to ask questions of the executive of the papers and also if we need to have any clarification from officers. But please use your blue hands. I can't see everybody on the screen at the same time, although I know I will get some assistance from members of Democratic Services, but blue hands, please. In terms of voting for the executive, I will ask that we use the green tick for you are in agreement with the recommendations and the red cross if you're not. If you're not in favour of recommendations, if you could say so, because then we have that as a record and it's transparent to members of the public who may be watching this. And it's the most straightforward way of doing it. So it's we're still in strange times, but I think we're all getting used to seeing us all as little squares on our screens. And I thank you all for helping everybody make this work. Just one piece of sort of good news really I want to share, because sometimes it's quite difficult to find good news in these times. And as you know, the government has been providing local authorities with grants, council tax support grants, business rate grants. but we have given out over 1.6 million to 166 businesses, and that's way ahead of a government timetable. So I think I'd like to thank the officers who got those through the door, because I know it's a big job making sure that all the paperwork, as was appropriate, was filled in and is correct. So thank you everyone for doing that. Apologies, agenda item 2. I have an apologies from Councillor Jan Goodeve. I believe that's the only one, Rebecca?
Yes, Leader.
Thank you very much indeed. Agenda item 3 are the minutes. They start on page 7, going through to page 24. Please may I have a proposer and seconder, or if anyone has any comments on the minutes. Okay, I'm happy to propose them. Councillor McAndrew has seconded them. Thank you very much. Agenda item 4 are declarations of interest. This needs to be declared both from the executive and any backbenchers who are here. Please can you declare if you have any pecuniary or otherwise declarations of interest on any of the papers here. Okay, I don't see any hands, so we'll move on. Agenda item 5 is an update from Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Now, I understand Councillor Wiley, who is the chair of that, is likely to not be able to make this meeting, but as he emailed me earlier during the day, since there hasn't been a meeting since the last executive, there's no actual update, so that's fine. However, let's go on to agenda item 6, which is the update from the Audit and Governance Committee. Councillor Pope, I believe you're with us.
Yes, thank you. The Audit and Governance Committee met on the 28th of July. There was quite a full agenda for that meeting. We received a very useful cybersecurity update from Ruth Luscombe, who's a director or assistant director at with Stevenage Borough Council. That was a very useful and informative presentation. Importantly, the committee also received a draft copy of the council's accounts, which we reviewed. A final version of those accounts will come to the committee's next meeting in September, on the 22nd of September. Apart from that, the other items were fairly routine, and I've got nothing else to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pope. Moving on to agenda item 7 is the Sustainability Supplementary Planning Document draft for consultation, which starts on page 25. And I will be introducing that, and I believe Councillor McAndrew will also wish to say a few words, since this is a topic very close to his heart. This is a document which starts putting into context our aspirations on what we want to do for achieving our climate carbon neutral by 2030. And it's just one of a suite of things that we are doing. But it does help us identify the measures that we need to achieve this target. I think there are already a number of policies in our district plan, which was adopted in 2018, but life has moved on since then, and we are and were very aware that we did not necessarily have the strength of policies behind us to ensure that developers understood the seriousness that we take this. This policy, which is very comprehensive, and I hope you have all read it and digested it, certainly lays out very clearly for developers what we expect of them. And I think by working together with them and with the community, we will be able to meet some of these achievements. I think the other thing is, obviously, it works in close tandem with the policies that are now coming through from the Harlow Garden Gilston Town, and they will be viewed in parallel when the planning applications for Gilston start coming forward to East Herts District Council. I think there is also one thing that's not mentioned in here, but Hertfordshire has set up in the last 6 months a Hertfordshire Climate Sustainability Policy group, which incorporates all of the 10 district and borough councils and the county council, and that's chaired by Graham McAndrew, and they have set very high standards for what we want to achieve in Hertfordshire. And it is looking at things that we can do across the whole of the county, so that's most important. So I know that Graham, do you want to have a few words?
Yeah, I'll have a few words at the end, Lido.
Okay, great. May I ask, are there anyone who wish to say anything, comment on anything, or ask about this policy? This is a policy that's going out for consultation, so there may still be changes which will come through, but it's already been through a number of statutory bodies, and also the team has worked closely with the developers so that they know what's coming out tonight. Anybody wish to say anything? I can't see anyone. Councillor Crystal, is that you? Okay. Can you use your blue hand, please, because I can't see. And you're on mute, Councillor Crystal.
Thanks, Leader. Yes, sorry, I did put my blue hand up. I wanted to say I think it's a great document and praise the officers and those involved. I did have a question about process. And I hope it's okay to ask it now. One of the things that's emphasised in the SPD is a sort of holistic approach to sort of design and landscape and trees and all the rest of the things that are involved, which makes great sense. But I just sense from planning meetings, sometimes there can be a disconnect between those ideas and what actually happens in a planning meeting, or the process of used in the planning process within the council. And I wondered whether the SPD is an opportunity for the council itself to sort of take a second look at, or take another look at, perhaps the process that officers use in assessing an application. I suppose one example is the landscape and design statements. Now often they're left as conditions, and when we look at the SPD, it's clear that the landscape and design is actually, if you're looking at these holistically and with an intent to reduce carbon, then landscape and design shouldn't really be left as a condition. So I wondered whether there would be an opportunity to reassess the processes. I understand there are lots of reasons why things may be left as conditions, but that was just a sort of general question.
Okay, thank you. Claire, Sarah, are you able to answer that? I mean, I guess in a way that we have to look upon this as a transition document, don't we? That when we do come back to reassess and review our district plan, then again, we will be able to make some of these policies really, really stick. Sarah?
Yeah, I'm happy to provide an answer. Essentially, you know, the starting point is that the district plan. This document provides more guidance for applicants to be able to use. And obviously there's the checklist to be worked through, which is really important. And obviously at the start of the process, you know, particularly for, you know, sites with, you know, a certain number of houses, we expect them to go through a particular process, starting with the master planning process and working that through. Now, a lot of it will depend when applications come through Development Management Committee, what type of planning application they are. So obviously, with an outline planning application is submitted, not as much detail is submitted as part of that application. Nevertheless, you would have expected actually quite a lot of work to be done as part of preparing that application. So it is seen as a kind of a holistic process, but obviously on the planning application side, it depends on the type of application that is being submitted. And obviously that's why, you know, there are conditions attached to both outline and full applications. But I think that's where you know, you may be coming from, Councillor Crystal, but we would expect, you know, from the outset, the process to be followed through. And this is a key document in ensuring that people are considering it from the outset and working that through into their proposals. And then a lot will depend on at what stage of the process they are in terms of the level of detail. I don't know if Claire would like to add to that.
Sorry, no, I don't think there's anything necessary to add. I think the key thing is that this is brought to the front of the process, So you have your sustainability checklist. It will be part of the validation process. And so it will be brought to the forefront of applicants' minds, which will hopefully ensure that, you know, we do get that holistic approach to development. But as Sarah says, it will depend on the nature and type of application that's being proposed. But I think the other thing to note is that the SPD, it's for officers as well as members, as well as applicants. So it brings everything together, that thought process together into one place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure, Ben. Graham, do you want to wrap up?
Sorry, Councillor Hazier, I believe Councillor Rutland-Barsby also
Oh,
had her hand up, followed
all
by
right.
Mr. Stowe.
Okay. Councillor Rutland-Barsby.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to congratulate officers on this very welcome and well written document. Thank you.
Councillor Stokes, finally.
Okay, Councillor Stowe.
Thank you, Leader. I thought I'd forgotten about, all it was really, I read it all the way through this document. It's very impressive and some good details on it. And I mean, we had an application through DMC last month, and the developer was even refusing to consider anything but gas boilers for the heating. I mean, so what I'm really asking is, how much strength will it give us for all applications, not, new build applications generally? If I could answer that, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
We still go back to the district plan and the policy position we've got in the district plan, and I think from memory the wording in relation to sort of climate change is that it's to encourage to go beyond building regulations. So we're still in a position where we're working from that policy position. This document therefore brings things together and encourages applicants to go beyond, but we're not at the point where we've got a policy position that is more stringent in its requirements. So, this is the next step to encouraging and pushing applicants, and we're seeing that some applicants are responding to that and others don't respond quite as we'd like them to, but we are able, as this goes through the process, to be able to use it to set out the council's expectations, even if it is just encouraging at this stage. But it certainly paves the way as we look to draft new policy moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Rebecca, I can't see any blue hands whatsoever, so I'm afraid I'm totally reliant upon you to pick out people for me. Councillor McAndrew, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I just want to thank Laura. I notice Laura's not with us this evening, but she's put a lot of time and effort into pulling this document together. I've sent her lots and lots of information, and it's really good to see how smoothly it flows throughout the document. And I think it brings clarity to the sustainability agenda, allowing planners, developers, officers and councillors to work off the same hymn sheet, really. And there's no sort of whatever. So when planning application goes to DMC, the officers and the councillors on that committee know what's been looked at, what hasn't been looked at, and really the reasons why. I concur with Councillor Crystal. It's a really great document, and this document will evolve over a period of time when the district plan is reviewed in a few years' time and the government legislation. And it's a really good starting point for this sustainability agenda. Thank you, Leader.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. Do I have any more comments or questions, Rebecca? No? Okay, great. In that case, Executive, can I take you to page 25, where there are two recommendations, A and B. If you could put your green tick or blue hat or red cross up, I'd be grateful. And if anyone is going to vote against it, perhaps they can actually say. And I've got to work out how to do it. Okay. Right. Okay, have you got that, Rebecca? I think it was unanimously agreed, so thank you very much indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, if we can now move on to agenda item 8, which is the safeguarding policy, which is on page 203. Councillor Boylan.
Thank you, Leader. Good evening, everybody. Members have them before them this evening, an updated safeguarding policy. Over the last few months, I've been working alongside officers through the Safeguarding Policy Group to update this important document to support the work of officers as well as members. I will take the document as read, but just point out that the main changes in this update to the policy are to reflect changes in legislation, as well as a more detailed section on safer recruitment of staff and a new section on the management of VIPs. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank officers for their hard work in bringing this together, in particular Nick Phipps, who spent many hours drafting and redrafting to arrive at the document we have today. There are 2 recommendations on page 195, and I propose that we agree those tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder for that proposal, please? Councillor Buckmaster.
Yes, happy to second. It's good to see this update. Clearly over time, things change. There are different areas of concern, so it's important to keep this updated. So a very good document. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. It flows very well, so thank you very much indeed. Are there any comments or questions on this, either for Peter or for Nick? No? Okay, in that case, may I take you to recommendations on page 195, A and B. Please, can I ask the executive to vote? Okay. I believe that's carried unanimously. Is that correct, Rebecca?
Yes, it is, Leader.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. If we now move on to agenda item 9, which is on page 229. This is a financial update from Councillor Williamson. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Leader, and good evening, everybody. You'll recall I provided an update on the Council's financial position from the impacts of COVID-19 at our executive meeting on the 2nd of June. Now, 3 months on, we have the opportunity to take another look and in particular review it in the light of subsequent developments. I should make it clear that whilst we have used the best information available to us to set out this indicative position, the continuing impacts of COVID-19 is still subject to some conjecture. Back in June, we were considering a timescale of between 3 and 5 months, under which restrictions would remain in place. And on that basis, we were looking at a range of between 1.4 million and 3 million, which would need to be taken from reserves in order to meet this year's budget. Since then, we have been granted a further 200,000 to add to the 1.5 million given previously. And more significantly, the government has announced a scheme to partially compensate councils for their loss of fees and charges income. In our case, this equates to a further £400,000 per month. With the knowledge we have now, we're working on the basis of a 4 to 6 month period in which we expect to suffer the losses of income, and factoring in the additional financial support now available to us, this revises our projections to between 400,000 and 1.2 million, which is a considerably better position than we were considering before. However, in the more medium term, the position is looking somewhat bleaker. When we agreed our medium-term financial plan back in January, we were already looking at a budget gap over the life of the plan of 1.6 million. Part of our strategy to address this focused on our financial sustainability measures to generate income through commercial and residential property investments. And whilst the present crisis has delayed progress on these activities this year, there is no reason to believe that there'll be a longer-term impact and that our plans will not be fulfilled. But in addition to this, we also plan for increases in car parking charges in order to generate additional revenue. The evidence so far since COVID is that use of our car parks has not returned to pro-virus levels. And this is particularly so with our long stay parking associated with commuters. Therefore, whilst we can continue to consider raising parking charges, this will just have the effect of returning income to previous levels without creating additional revenue to support the MCFP. We have also built some additional costs into our plan to take into account further expenditure that the council will be facing, in particular relating to waste collection. And also in 3 years' time, we're expecting that a separate food waste service will be required, which we anticipate will cost a further 1 million. Taking all this into consideration, we now calculate the total budget gap to have moved from 1.6 million to 4 million. £1 next year, the same the following year, and then 2 million in the year 23-24. It goes without saying, to address this for the council is going to be an extremely challenging task. And we're going to start the planning process with members and officers very shortly. The third strand of this update is around our capital programme. As we know, we have a full programme revolving around our leisure centres, Hertford Theatre and Old River Lane. Whilst we're starting with a very healthy cash position, the time will come when we will need to start borrowing to fund these projects. We've always understood this to be the case, and the costs of borrowing have been built into each project's business case. However, we do need to be mindful of a range of factors that could now affect our costings, including some unforeseen delays, COVID and Brexit. We therefore consider it prudent to review the programme and update the business cases in the light of the latest position, and that this should be built into the budget setting process for next year. So, Leader, Executive, there are 2 recommendations on page 229, A and B, to cover the points I've made, and I'm happy to move those, please, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cutting, will you be willing to second this paper, please?
Yes, I'm happy to second that paper. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Councillor Williamson. We are in a better financial position than some councils. However, we must not and cannot be complacent. And I think we are going to have to make some very uncomfortable decisions in the coming months. And I think they are ones that we will do through working with officers and with councillors to make sure that actually we get to the right decisions. I think I would take you to one of the risks, which is highlighted on page 238. And it says there is a risk that without significant new initiatives to reduce net costs, the council will be using up a high proportion of reserves over the medium term. And I think that's important to bear in mind. So it is going to be a mixture of cost control plus initiatives to generate new income. Are there any questions or comments from anyone? Rebecca, again, I look to you for guidance, please.
No, Leader, I can't see any hands up.
Okay. In that case,
Excuse me,
can I take...
Councillor Pope has got his hand up, Leader.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pope.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed for the presentation. That was very, very useful and informative. You mentioned about the re-evaluation process that's going to be undertaken with regard to the capital projects, and you're absolutely right that with the changing circumstances, these decisions need to be based on the most up-to-date information. Can you give us any more sort of indication of when these re-evaluations will take place, and sort of are we anywhere near sort of this process where we might be able to look at these projects just to make sure that we're happy with them to go ahead, or whether they need to be changed in any way?
May I ask Bob if he could perhaps come back on that on timescales, please?
Yes, certainly. At the moment, the instruction that's gone out to the project managers is to re-evaluate these business cases and have is what we've asked for as well in terms of the work they're doing on the re-evaluation is some scenario planning around them. So different amounts of allowances in terms of cost overruns, and so we will get a range of figures that will allow us to evaluate them. And at the moment, they have been requested to come back with those by the end of September.
That's good. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? If anyone wants to yell, just carry on.
No, hands up, leader.
No, okay. In that case, executive, please can I take you to page 229 where there are two recommendations, A and B. Please can I ask you to vote? Again, Rebecca, I believe that's unanimous
Yes,
for
it
the
is.
recommendations?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Right, as far as I know, we have no urgent business that has been brought forward for this evening. So thank you all very much for your contributions this evening at Executive, and have a pleasant evening. Good night.